Hi guys. I noticed that some of you seem to be struggling a little bit with the assignment for this last week on audience segmentation. And so I just wanted to give a little tutorial to maybe help you out to see how to approach it so that you can do a little bit more work this week in collecting your data so that you can finish up your situation analysis reports next week. So here I am in our Titanium site at last week's material on audiences and segmentation. So that's where you want to start, to get a sense of what to do. And so I'm going to go into some of the lessons here. So in the audience segmentation lesson, many of you should have seen, it was also in the assignment, seen a template here for just different information to collect about your audiences. So so I created one of those, and I'm gonna go over that. And I'll show you what I did there to kind of get me started. But I think it's helpful to kind of see the end game. And so what you want to keep in mind is the purpose of all this data collection. And the purpose of all the data collection is to complete your situation analysis report for next week. And the larger goal is you're doing all of this so that you can understand Juice It Up and their customers and their environment and everything that you need to know to come up with some good ideas for them to how to get a college age audience to do more juicing. So that's what it's all about. And so this week we're concentrating on their audiences. So what do we need to know about their current customers as well as the audience you're trying to target? With the current customers, we just want to know who they are and a little bit about them because we don't want to insult them or upset them with anything we do to try and target another audience. And we also want to keep them in mind and see if there are ways that we might do messaging and strategies that might be appeal both to the new audience we're trying to reach as well as the existing audience. So that's the idea. So in this second lesson, documenting audience segments, what you should see, one of the things included here are several examples of some things, but also some full situation analysis reports. And you should have seen some of these throughout the lessons. But I think it's really good to kind of look at these so you have a sense of where you're headed with your materials. So for example, here in the Hyundai report, which was a particularly well done report, if you go down and you toggle through the whole report, it has all the 5 C's, but it has information on customers. And so it's not a whole lot of details, but the idea is just understanding who currently are the types of customers that we might see in this case for a fuel cell, kind of a new technology vehicle, so that you know kind of who those are. Now, again, in this campaign, they were also targeting kind of college-age millennials, but in a different way, really just to kind of so that they could, maybe appreciate the brand of Hyundai and that they're forward thinking and trying to be good for the environment. And so letting them know about this fuel cell vehicle, not that they're going to buy it tomorrow, but just that Hyundai's doing good things and that it's a brand that they should consider and watch for. So, so they had to talk about those customers, and then down here, you have their target audience. And so in the target audience, you want to do a lot more research on your target audience. You need to know a lot about them in order to make sure that you understand what's going to appeal to them, how to reach them. And so this is just kind of the summary of what you know and what you pick out that's important. So all of that has to be, so you're going to be collecting a lot more data that you then kind of sift through for your final report. So here they have a little bit about the target audience, and then they also have some personas for those audiences. So again, here you see kind of really humanizing and detailing more in the target audience. And then on the customers, they just did some kind of basic info segmenting on them. Where was that? That is here. Right? Just gives a little bit of information. So you can look at some of those different things. So there's not one right way of really writing all this up, but the point is that you want to know about each of your customer segments. If there's more than one, just know who they are and what's important to them, and then really dig into your target audience. So that's the goal. So now how do we go about doing that? Well, the first thing that I did, we'll go back into the class here. First thing that I did is created my little template that I can start cutting and pasting information into. So this is just for my research part. So for the assignment this last week, what I'd asked you to do is just collect all your research and then kind of in a separate document, having gone through that research, hit the highlights and just kind of summarizing what you're finding that's important. Because that's the idea. You're going to be reading and getting more information that you have in your head and that you understand, and then you just want to be kind of documenting the highlights to be keeping in mind. So here we have our starter template. So you can see I took out all of the details for this first group. So we're going to start in the first group. You were told for the customer segments for Juice It Up is Hispanic moms. So I created one for Hispanic moms. I cleared out just all the prompts there. You can always go down and look at them if you need help. And so now what I want to do is I want to start researching Hispanic moms and understanding a little bit about them. Remember, I'm not going to try and dig in too deep here. I just want to kind of make sure I understand who they are. So where do I begin for that? Well, if you looked at the tutorial, which was the third lesson, in the third lesson here, you had some tutorials on where to find secondary research on customers. So hopefully you looked through there and you saw, ideally, of course, you'd get a lot of this from the client, but when you're looking for it on your own and trying to understand them, where can you go? Well, when you're just starting for an initial search, Google search on the internet is really a great place to start. So in this case, I just typed in Hispanic mom market segment, and I got a ton of information that came up. Now, obviously, with each one of these sites, you're going to want to look at it and see how credible you perceive it to be. But you can go in here and see Hispanic market segment and marketing to new Hispanic moms and 4 market segmentation strategies for reaching Hispanics. So there's a lot of great information here that you might find. One thing that I found interesting here was just even off this headline here, 4 out of 10 Hispanic moms are millennials. Wow. So this is giving me a little bit more insights on the demographics of Hispanic moms, because all we know is Hispanic moms, and that doesn't tell us a whole lot. So I clicked on this, and I wanted to see what it is and where the information comes from. And so here's this nice little infographic that has a bunch of information about a new generation of moms, Hispanic millennials. This is awesome. So 4 out of 10 Hispanic moms are millennials. Now let's see where the source of this is. Marketing to Hispanic moms. It's from Census Bureau data, so it seems reasonably reliable. So I feel pretty comfortable relying on this just for my general background and my customer audience. So here's some information that I could pop right in to my information here about demographics. So I can type in age, and I don't need that underlined necessarily, but I can type in age, and then I can put 18 to 34, 39%. And I like that. I like that one headline. I think that's going to be an important takeaway. What was it, 4 out of 10? So I've added that in there. I can add in all this age demographic information, so I can, kind of put all of that right in this section right here, and then move on to other categories. Now notice what I'm doing here is that I'm taking all the information on Hispanic on my one segment and putting it in one section. Then I'm going to do the same thing for Asians, which was our target audience, and families, and then obviously I'll do a lot more for my millennial or my college age group, millennials, Generation Z, Y, Z, that whole group below. But you want to separate them out, otherwise it just gets very confusing to have Hispanics and Asians and things and demographics and trying to go back and forth. So it's going to be helpful if you just keep each of your segment groups separate in terms of your research. So like I said, I would fill the rest of this in, but right now I'm just going to go back. So like I said, you can put a bunch of that information in there if you want. I'm going to go back here and see what else I can find. So I might find some other information in here. And you can just go through 4 market segmentation strategies for reaching Hispanics. This might have some interesting information. So understanding demographics and assimilation. So like I said, you just go through and see if there's some key points you might add into your research. You can also look up, just type in, so one search term I had used was marketing to Hispanic moms. And so, like, this was one that I'd showed you. I sent an email and some information earlier, how to appeal to Hispanic mothers, 5 winning strategies. So this sounds like a good place to maybe look to find some things out about Hispanic moms. And, so for example, here, her value proposition is not based on price, but product service, needs to get the job done well. It appeals to her. So if I'm starting to find this information kind of interesting, again, I would look at the source and see where this comes from. Who is this person? Campaign USA, who is this person? Creative director, multicultural geometry, global North America. Okay, might be reasonable. So I'd go back and I can put that information in. Now make sure with all this information that you're putting in your reports that you are citing it. So you'd want to go in here and when I added into that first information, U.S. Census, make sure I go back and get the information on where it came from. You want to make sure you have all the data. So here I can put in, some of this for now, you can be simple and you can go back and document later. But there may be some psychographics and behavioral habits they have here, and then you'll add in some of that information here. So you just kind of add it in as you go, like that. Okay, so here's how to appeal to Hispanic mothers. Like I said, you can go through and just find specific things about avoids uncertainty, extremely loyal to brands. That might be something I want to add in there. So you just kind of want to know a little bit about who they are. And let's see, there's some other things. Like I said, just look through. I know when I was looking back through some of this research before, yeah, well, like I said, that there's just tons of things about what's important to them, how they've changed culturally over the years, how to take cultural considerations into account. And again, this is just an existing customer segment. So you don't need to dig really deep. You just want to read through some of this information, see what you're finding that you think is important for just keeping them in mind, and add it in here and cite your sources. So you can do that for each one of your audiences. And like I said, for these customer segments, really, I think just doing some Google information, as long as the sources are valid. I know there was some great Pew research on young Asian audiences and what's important to them if you just do some Google searching. So just fill that in a little bit, okay? Where you're really going to want to dig deeply, though, and then so that's your raw research dump. At this point, I'm not going to need to see all of that again. You're just going to synthesize through it to create those nice little summaries. But it's just, the important thing here is that you are doing the learning. The research is done so that you understand your audiences. The millennials, it's not really as much millennials now, I suppose it is Gen Z, but that college age group is really the major one that you're going to spend the most time on. So you're going to want to, like what I just would do is just do a whole separate thing for that group. Oops. Here, I'm just going to copy and paste this. Oh, I have a bunch of them. Here. So, and do Gen Z, I think, is probably the most common term used for this generation, which is basically, for most of you, your generation. So it's an audience you should understand, but you can't just base things on the way you are and your own assumptions, even though they might be good. You need to be able to back that up with research so other people can, not just feel that they're just trusting your opinion, but that it holds true. So again, you're going to go through here and you're going to fill in demographic information. So obviously that would be, that what you're looking for is your college age. So, age 18 to maybe, we'll just say 18 to 30, give yourself a range. I'm going to do that, but 18 to 30, 18 to 25-ish, somewhere in that range is what we're looking at. And that's in terms of demographics. We're not looking where they live in the country or anything else like that. That's going to be less important for some of the things we're interested in. We really want to know about their attitudes, their opinions, their behaviors, who influences them, media channels that are important to them, all of these factors. And there is so much information about this group. If you just go here and type in Gen Z, and I think like literally even so type in Gen Z, Generation Z, you are going to get a ton of information about them. So you're going to want to dig in even deeper and say Gen Z and marketing. And you're going to find a ton of information there about all kinds of insights on who they are and what's important to them and what influences them. So there's tons of things that you can find here on Gen Z. And then I even put Gen Z and juicing just to see what I would find. Right? And so healthy habits of Gen Z. So there's a ton of stuff here that you can find out just in relation to juicing. And that's another thing that I would encourage you to kind of keep in mind for your target, because clearly, you know, we know that they're trying to encourage a college age group, but they'll welcome any additional people that like juicing. So if you look up juicing and market segment, so here you're going to find a lot more, and I think you'll find if you go through here that younger demographic is certainly one of the key groups that is interested in juicing anyway, but you can look through here as well and consider where even in your target, if you might be like, okay, well, here's our young college group that we're interested in, but we're also interested in all those people that might be kind of hip, you know, and interested in juicing, and pulling them, more of them to juice it up than maybe some of the other juice bars. So information to look at. Because this segment is so important to you, though, I recommend that you do more than just, some internet searching here. I recommend that you go ahead and dig into some of the databases. You dig deeper, like the lecture talks about, in some of the library resources. So I recommend that you go in here to go in through your portal to the library, and do some searching. Now, you'll remember that the librarian talked about new strategists and some specific books that you might find, but this one search strategy isn't a horrible way to get started, as long as once you see what you find, you pay attention to the sources and you make sure you're looking for credible sources. So if I'm going to type in Generation Z, for example, oops, would help if I spelled Generation Z correctly. So there's all kinds of things on Generation Z to go through. Generation Z consumers' expectations. And again, even this might seem a little overwhelming. So you might even get more specific and type in Gen Z marketing. And so, for example, this second reference here, the second thing that comes up, marketing to Gen Z, the rules for reaching the vast and different generation of influencers. And look here, it has online access, which is perfect. It was written in 2018, so it's recent. So this looks like a pretty good place to look for some information. So you can read this right online and get some information about what it is. So look at the publisher and everything. But so if we go online and read it, there's a bunch of information in here. So you can learn a little bit about their methodology, key questions, how are they different. And so look, it tells you about how they collected their data. So that's very helpful for understanding the credibility of the source. And then here we have all this information you can look at, who they are, how they communicate, about branding. And so you're going to get all kinds of insights here on this audience that you can then take and peel into, just copy and paste and put your source into all of these sections here, so that you have a lot of rich information. So once you've filled in all of this kind of research dump, then you take it and you can create a new document where you will do profiles, and so do a profile for your Hispanic moms, and just a couple paragraphs that kind of describes a little bit about who they are. You might give some headings on them. So do each of your customer profiles, And then you're also going to want to do your target audience. And so based on all your research, you might decide whether maybe you have a couple of different segments of college-age people. Maybe there's ones that are more serious into health and juicing, and others that, you know, this is just one of the things they might put into their rotation of foods. You need to look at the research to figure that out. The idea with different segments is you need to segment them into different groups if they have different interests and different needs, and you might need to reach them in different ways, so you want to make sure that you've kind of covered that. So like I said, you can create your college audiences, and you might also create a specific target just on kind of, you know, the juicers. You know, who are the really core juicers that you're trying to, you know, expand on. So, so those are some things I would do. I'd maybe say, you know, so like I said, you have to come up with your own ideas based on your research, and I haven't dug in deep enough to really think this through myself. But if we wanted to say, like I said, like maybe, no, college health conscious. And then maybe you have just college quick service. So you might have a specific audience if you went through that's like really going to be all about, they're going there because it's health conscious and they want to really be health conscious, and others that are just looking for something quick and tasty. And so you might build those out. And again, with your target audience, you still might explain a profile kind of describing key factors, but you also might create, you know, a couple of personas. So where you create someone like, you know, here is John, you know, and John is Joe college student who's very health conscious or whatever it is, and you kind of create the little persona of them. And so then you just fill in all that information. And so that's really what I was looking for with the assignment. So like I said, for your final situation analysis, you are going to have to really build all of this out. So many of you are going to need to go back and do a little bit more of this filling in of that research so that you really understand the audiences. Again, it's not a scavenger hunt where I'm just slapping information in here that Dr. King said I needed to put in this file. It's reading so that you feel like, yeah, I really understand a little bit more about Hispanic moms and what they're all about so that I can keep them in mind. I understand Asians 25 to 35, which is really vague and kind of going to be a hard thing to really generalize about a whole lot, but I just kind of understand generally what some of the values and interests are of these groups and of families. And then you would go and look at your target audience and really dig and go, okay, we really understand this college group. These are some of the different things that are important to them. This is how to reach them. And all of that should then help spark ideas for you in terms of how to design a campaign. So I know that was quick, and I know I talk fast, but I was hoping to just give you a little bit of insight on how to really tackle this project. So I hope that helps, and please do not hesitate to shoot me an email. If you have questions, I expect you to have questions. There's only so far you can go with some of this material. So when you have questions, shoot me an email. We can talk and help you get a little further in the project. So hope to talk to you all soon. I'm going to sign out.